Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Sparkling Knowledge Channel. Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim, Sons and Sacrifices. There was a place in times of old called Makkah where a man named Abdul Muttalib hoped and wished and prayed that God would bless him with healthy sons who would live to adulthood. In those days, many children were born and almost as many children died. So Abdul Muttalib knew that his wish could not easily be fulfilled. After a great deal of thought, Abdul Muttalib became convinced that God would grant him his heart's desire if he added a little incentive to his prayers. So he swore a mighty oath that if he had 10 sons, and they all grew up to be strong and healthy men, he would sacrifice one of them to God in front of the Kaaba, the house of God. Many years later, Abdul Muttalib was reminded of his youthful oath by the sight of his sons, his 10 strong and healthy sons to be exact. Each and every one of them had grown to adulthood and became a source of pride and joy to his aging father. Whenever Abdul Muttalib looked at his sons, he thought of his oath with a deep sense of regret. To ignore the oath and not carry through with it was simply unthinkable. Abdul Muttalib had made a bargain with God. If he did not keep his end of the bargain, God might take back what he had given Abdul Muttalib, 10 sons. With a heavy heart, Abdul Muttalib gathered his sons together, told them of his rash oath, and asked them their opinion on the matter. "The matter is as you see it, father," they replied. "We are yours to do with as you wish." Heartened by their reply, Abdul Muttalib told each of his sons to go and get an arrow. When they returned carrying their respective arrows, he gathered all the arrows in a bunch and announced that the owner of whichever arrows was picked would be the son he would sacrifice. All the young men held their breath as their father shook the bag he had placed in the arrows in. As he reached his hand into the bag, the silence was stark and absolute. Abdul Muttalib withdrew an arrow and saw to his horror that it belonged to his youngest son, Abdullah. All the young men exhaled, some with relief that they were safe, some with horror that much loved Abdullah had been chosen. One son, however, exhaled with what could only be called a sob of grief. Abu Talib, Abdullah's full-blooded brother, could not believe that Abdullah had been so ill-fated. Abdullah seemed to go through life with his own personal lucky star shining down on him. So Abdullah's luck to desert him at such a crucial moment was both unthinkable and unbearably tragic. Abdul Muttalib numbly put the arrow down and taking his youngest son Abdullah by the head, he wordlessly set out for the Kaaba in the center of Makkah. Abu Talib sat in stunned silence with the rest of his brothers, or rather his half-brothers. Abdullah was the only one of his brothers from the same mother, certainly as though they had all been released from some evil spell that held them immobile. They wheeled around as one and hurried after their father and brother. "No!" Abu Talib screamed when he saw his father lay his brother down between two of the idol placed in front of the Kaaba and then raised his knife. "Father, don't!" Abu Talib cried out as he launched himself at his father and struggled with him for possession of the knife. Abu Talib glanced down as he fought his father, and his eyes met the sad, resigned eyes of his brother Abdullah. "No, father, please don't," Abu Talib begged. The people around the Kaaba were surprised when they saw Abdul Muttalib holding a knife and struggling with his son. Abu Talib over the prone form of his youngest son Abdullah. They quickly gathered around the tree and demanded to know what was going on. When everything was explained, the men of Banu Makhzum clan stepped forward and swore to protect Abdullah from his father. They said Abdullah's mother was from the Banu Makhzum clan and they would not allow Abdul Muttalib to kill a man of their blood. If you must fulfill your oath, they said hotly, then pick one of your other sons, one who does not have Banu Makhzum blood in his veins. I chose his arrow, not the arrow of one of his brothers. The decision has been made. He must be the one sacrificed, Abdul Muttalib replied grimly. Never, the men of Banu Makhzum cried out fiercely. We will fight to the last man and sacrifice all our wealth to save him. Just then, the elders of the clan of Quraysh interrupted. What you propose to do is no small thing. If you kill your son, then you will never have another moment of peace as long as you live. Seeing the determined look on Abdul Muttalib's face, the elders continued, wait, just wait. Why not go and consult the priests of Bani Sa'id? Who better than she to tell you what God's will is in this matter? Abdul Muttalib hoped there was a way of settling his oath without killing his son. So he readily agreed to the Qurayshi elders' suggestion. That very day Abdul Muttalib set out with a delegation of Banu Makhzum's men to consult the priestess of Bani Saida. As soon as they arrived, Abdul Muttalib explained his oath to the priestess and how God has subsequently granted his prayers, giving him 10 strong and healthy sons who had lived to adulthood. The priestess listened with interest to Abdul Muttalib's story, but when he asked her what he should do, she told him expressively, leave me now, return tomorrow, and I will tell you then what you must do. Content to leave the matter in her capable hands, the men respectfully took their leave. The next day they returned to the priestess, who asked them, what is the unusual amount of a blood depth for your people? The men replied almost in unison, 10 camels. Very well. The priestess said briskly, clapping her hands together, go home and take the boy back to the Kaaba and take with you 10 camels. Once there, mark an arrow for the boy and an arrow for the 10 camels. Place them in a bag, reach in blindly and choose one. If the camel's arrow is chosen, then sacrifice the camels in place of the boy. If the boy's arrow is chosen, then add another 10 to the number of camels and try again. Every time the boy's arrow is chosen, add another 10 camels and keep doing that until God is satisfied with the number of camels to be sacrificed in the boy's place. When that happens, the camel's arrow will be chosen. Your God will be appeased and your son will be safe. Happy with the sage advice of the priestess, the men returned to Makkah and told everyone about the priestess' solution to Abdul Muttalib's quandary. The elders of Makkah were greatly relieved by this turn of events. They gathered around Abdul Muttalib and told him encouragingly, follow the example of your ancestor Ibrahim when he was going to sacrifice his son Ismail. As an elder of his descendants, it is seemingly for you to do as he did and sacrifice an animal in place of your son. The next morning, Abdul Muttalib took his son Abdullah and 10 camels to the Kaaba. Once he arrived, he found all of Makkah waiting there, eager to see how things would turn out. Abdul Muttalib prepared and marked the arrows, placed them in a bag, closed his eyes and chose one. The arrow was the one marked for Abdullah, so the camels to be sacrificed became 20, and Abdul Muttalib tried again. 30 camels to be sacrificed, and Abdul Muttalib tried again. 40 camels to be sacrificed, and Abdul Muttalib tried again. Again and again and again. Abdul Muttalib chose an arrow. Each and every time it was Abdullah's arrow that was pulled from the bag. Abdul Muttalib began to fear that this was God's way of forcing him to sacrifice Abdullah. Perhaps he thought uneasily God would settle for nothing less than the life of his son. Shaking off these dark thoughts, Abdul Muttalib tried again. 90 camels were to be sacrificed, and Abdul Muttalib reached with shaking hands to try again. 100 camels were to be sacrificed. Praying quietly and swallowing his growing fear and desperation, Abdul Muttalib chose another arrow. The arrow chosen was marked for the camels. Abdullah whooped with joy, and all of the people surrounding Abdul Muttalib began to cheer and call out, "God is satisfied and your son is safe." Abdul Muttalib, "No," Abdul Muttalib said sternly, shocking and silencing the jubilant crowd. "I will not be sure of that until the camel's arrow is chosen thrice." Everyone stared as Abdul Muttalib quietly chose another arrow from the bag. The camel's arrow Abdul Muttalib chose for the third time. Finally, allowing hope to draw his heart, the camel's arrow was chosen again. God truly was satisfied. 100 camels would be sacrificed in place of his son. Abdullah was safe. Abdul Muttalib closed his eyes and thanked God quietly and fervently as the people around him cheered and called out to their congratulations. Without stopping to celebrate, Abdul Muttalib went to choose the 100 camels he was going to sacrifice in Abdullah's place. He chose the most beautiful, strong and healthy of all the camels in his herds. Then he drove them to the Mecca and one by one sacrificed them to God. Once the camel meat was made available to all those who wished to partake of it, Abdul Muttalib allowed all of the feelings he had held in check to finally wash over him. Trembling with joy and relief, Abdul Muttalib gathered his 10 sons together and walked proudly home with them while soft prayers of gratitude fell from his